Uh, so I've been thinking about this question, and Rudy, really, you set it up right there exactly, which is, what is art? And is art useful? And so I'd like you to just think for a second about your definition of what art is. And for me, I think it's probably a pretty dictionary type definition of painting, sculpture, music, literature, poetry, would be art, dance. And, but then that leads to the question of, like, is it useful? And so I'm gonna read something. This is a letter that Oscar Wilde wrote to his fans, one of his fans, in 1890. And he said, "My dear sir, art is useless because its aim is simply to create a mood. It is not meant to instruct or influence action in any way. It is superbly sterile. And the note of its pleasure is sterility. A work of art is useless as a flower is useless. A flower blossoms for its own joy. We gain a moment of joy by looking at it. That is all that is to be said about our relations to flowers. Of course, man may sell a flower, and so make it useful to him. But this has nothing to do with the flower. It is not part of its essence. It is accidental. It is a misuse. All this, I fear, is very obscure. But the subject is a long one. Truly yours, Oscar Wilde." And I thought, what a crazy letter to write to a fan. And then I thought about my friend Chris Sauter. He's a artist here in San Antonio, and he's a certifiable genius. And he said, I'm going to quote here, read this: "Art isn't practical. Making art is not practical. It is the most unpractical thing you could possibly do." Chris likes to cut into drywall, so he goes into museums and he takes the walls of the museum and he cuts holes out of them. And then he takes that material that makes circles or squares, and he makes sculptures out of that material he destroys the museum in the process. I mean, the drywall is easily replaced. But it is this kind of thing. And he works with this material, and I've done a project with him, and where we did 400 cuts out of this giant wall. And we built a drum set. And it looked exactly like this, but it was made out of drywall. And I've discovered that drywall is the most heavy sculptural material. And if you've ever worked with drywall, it's heavy and stupidly fragile. It's the word, and full of dust. So difficult to work with. But he does it, and he uses this, and he achieves such beautiful results because it's kind of gray and white, you know? And so he does this. It's impractical. It's flawed. It's human. But I would argue that it's important, as I've been thinking about it. I think that art is extremely useful, actually. Not in a strictly tool kind of way, but in an essential way. So I think for like us, or for somebody like myself, or actually for all of us, we have this ability for language, and we want to tell our story. Some of us maybe tell our stories a little too much, but there is this thing where it's universal that way. Pablo Picasso said, "Art's purpose was, quote, to wash the dust of daily life off of our souls." And then Franz Kafka, this is like a stunning sentence. He calls art the ice axe to break the sea frozen inside of us. I like that. Proust said it was to, quote, reawaken us to the extraordinary beauty of the ordinary world, to wake us up. I think there's a pattern here. So during the pandemic, as it began that March, and I felt it happen suddenly when I saw that two of my most important things in my life. Basketball got stopped. And then immediately, everything else I do, which is music, the South by Southwest canceled that. I had just released an album. I think I was one of the last persons to play at a concert. We played the Token, and it was awesome. And then it was over, like no tour, nothing. But I watched my mother, who is isolated in California, and she has a condition called giant cell arteritis, which is a type of autoimmune disease. And so with COVID happening and our fears, she had to be totally isolated. And so she was there in her little apartment in Altadena, California. My sister lives fairly close in Studio City, but they couldn't see each other. And we set up the family Zooms, and we did those each week. And I saw my mother just go down. And she's like kind of this optimist and full of joy person. And she was just so depressed. And I had this moment where I had a kind of a flash of just a sense of feeling. And I challenged her. I said, Mom, on one of these Zooms, actually everybody got off the Zoom except me and her. And I said, Mom, why don't you write something? And she's like, I don't feel like it. And my mother has always, over the years, written these incredible Christmas letters. You know, people write their family Christmas letter, and they usually share facts and details and bragging about their kids. My mother's were absurd, and these stories, and almost kind of a Garrison Keillor, but you know, just playful. And so all our family, all our friends, all the people that received these letters, and my mother moved 23 times in the course of my father's life because of the Navy, and I moved a lot. There's this audience she has, and I just said, you gotta write. And she's like, no. I said, come on, Mom, I'll write a page. If you write a page in 1 week, and you could share it on the Zoom if you want or not. And so she's like, okay. And then the next morning I woke up, and in my email, she had written 10 pages about the day I was born. I'm crying because I'm hungover. So she, it really touched me. And it also was this thing that my mother was doing this thing that we all need to do, which is express ourselves or do something creative. Over the years, I've watched like thousands of students, literally, and each one of them, I could see them at moments come alive. Even those that were bound to be like accountants or engineers or bankers, absolutely thrilled when they could find a creative solution to a problem. And I think there's no accident that like influencers on Instagram like to call themselves content creators. And it sounds like such a pretentious word as walking around. What do you do for a living? I'm a creator. But it makes it sound like I'm the creator or God. But if you look at it in a maybe a little bit more of an accepting light or a rosier light, it's kind of cool. Say I'm a creator. Why not own that? I think creator implies that each of us is imbued with like some kind of singular talent, chance to fashion something new out of something old, make something beautiful. So, I have to remind myself, and that's why I'm talking about this. You might be actually just asking right now, why is he asking this question and why is he gazing at his navel? But it's because when there are bombs falling in Ukraine, and there are bombs falling in Palestine, and I have neighbors that are being cruel to migrants, when those things are happening, I have to remind myself that there is a value in writing a stupid love song. And that it's okay to have that need. or that desire, and to do something that might be minor, a minor work, but it's something. And I'm certainly not in that process being mean to someone else, I hope. So, and myself as a singer, and even as a writer, I have my own limitations, which I'm well aware of. But then I just say, well, wasn't Beethoven actually deaf at the end? I mean, he was actually, like, talk about a limitation. And that he didn't write easily and smoothly. Like, he labored for his entire career to get the Ode of Joy, which was at the end when he was deaf. And it finally was something he'd been working. And there was a struggle, and I feel like I've got to honor that struggle, my struggle, our struggle. So finally, I guess I should answer, right? Is there a spiritual heart aspect to the act of the creation of art? And my answer would be, I don't know. I gotta be real with you, I'm not a very spiritual person, or an overtly spiritual person. But as I get older, I certainly do see the interconnectivity in human life, these miracles of people that have come in to help me, and in the animal world and the natural world. And that connectivity is there for sure. And so that there's something there. And so yes, of course, there's some level of whatever you would call spirituality in it. I just know that I just don't. When I'm writing something, I've become aware that it's like I'm not sitting down and penning like there's my masterpiece. It's the stuff that bubbles out that's really coming from the things I've heard and from all the voices I've listened so closely to, from John Lennon or Ray Davies from the Kinks or Pink Floyd, because my sister and brother blasted Pink Floyd through 2 speakers when I was a toddler over and over. And so that's just now in my DNA, the salsa in which I swim. So I was watching Stephen Colbert, and John Baptiste was talking to him about his writing process, and he said, he described how he wrote songs, and he said that he just has antenna. They're up, and their songs are up there, and he's like, and I just reach up and I grab them, bam, and I got another one, bam, and I was like, I love that image. It was so humble. Like, he's like, I didn't write it, I just caught it. And I do feel like there is something to that. Like, write it? No, not really. It's all stolen anyway. So I'm going to end with a poem by Nick Flynn, who I just love Nick Flynn. He had the worst childhood of all childhoods, and he survived it. So he's an inspiration. This is a poem about, I think, his vision of the creative process, which has a little bit to sort of front door plagiarism, which makes me feel better about the things I've stolen. It's a poem called Horse Thief by Nick Flynn. I've been wandering this desert so long, then another shitty little town appears, which I mistake again for an oasis. Out front of the saloon, a few horses hitched up, scrawny, mismatched horses. Oh Lord, I whisper, be my lookout, as I unhitch the healthiest looking one and simply ride off. Long ago, when I quit drinking the first time, I heard that if, as a drunk, you were a good horse thief, you'd be a better horse thief sober. I took this as one of the promises of sobriety. Now, each night, my hands come alive, hum out sparks. Some I hear want to be caught. I swear, I just want the horse.
Sinking into the space between the words, into the silence between the notes, we dwell in the infinite now. In a world of many, many mysteries, to which our human brains can find few clues, we would sink again and again into the heart, into the silence. Into the awareness of the infinite expressing through us now. And now. And now. Feeling that which wishes to be created, longs to be created through us, each with our own gifts, each with our own backgrounds and tools, each with our own expression, each with our willingness to express that which is ours to create. Now. From this place, we lift up our gifts to life. To our loved ones, yes, but to strangers as well, to the suffering in the Ukraine and Palestine, the west side of San Antonio, the north side of San Antonio, to all who suffer, and to all who thrive. We feel our deep connection. May you, may we, may all beings be blessed by our willingness to do this. And so it is.